Tonight, the federal NDP has a new leader after a decisive victory for Avi Lewis.
We are ready to come roaring back on the Canadian political stage.
The challenges he faces to rebuild the NDP and the policies even some in his own party find too extreme. Plus, a canceled flight at the last minute and compensation denied.
They said it was mechanical issues. Just that was it.
Our Go Public investigation into why WestJet's story didn't add up. And NASA gets set with a new launch window opening for the Artemis mission around the moon.
I will tell you, the four of us, we are ready to go.
How Canadian Jeremy Hansen and his fellow astronauts are taking it all in stride.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Hanemansing.
After a nearly 7-month campaign to find a new leader for a party decimated in the last election, the NDP has made its choice. Filmmaker, broadcaster, and activist Avi Lewis. Lewis vows the party will come roaring back with a focus on more government intervention, from publicly owned grocery stores to public housing, paid for with higher taxes on billionaires and big corporations. But his environmental stance has some provincial NDP leaders already backing away. David Thurton has followed this campaign from its beginning to a conclusion that represents a big shift and, for many in the NDP, new hope.
Please welcome the new leader of Canada's NDP, Avi Lewis.
Avi Lewis wasting no time showing what he wants his federal NDP to look like.
In my first act as leader,
Surrounded by caucus MPs and leadership candidates, Lewis laid out his vision.
our NDP has a different offer for this country.
That offer, more government ownership in spaces dominated by big business.
A network of public providers for food, phones, and internet. A public housing developer and public construction companies to build millions of non-market homes.
He brings a much more left populist kind of approach that is a policy set we haven't seen for a while.
Lewis is not new to the national scene. He comes from a long line of NDP leaders.
Fellow New Democrats.
That's him with his dad, Stephen Lewis, then Ontario NDP leader, when his grandfather, David Lewis, had just become federal leader. Lewis was also a journalist, documentary filmmaker, and TV host.
We're happy to be here in Regina.
He has a mandate, winning 56% of the vote, but some are not happy with his anti-pipeline stance. In a statement, Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi called Sunday's result not in the interest of Alberta. Saskatchewan NDP leader Carla Beck went further, saying in a letter that she'd meet with Lewis only when he publicly reversed his positions. And as he faces this opposition, Lewis still needs to win a seat in the House of Commons, but he isn't backing down.
I happen to be a person who welcomes hard conversations.
And he has some provincial allies.
I just love Avi. He's just a great person, and we don't have to agree on everything in order to do the big things together.
Immense challenges lie ahead for Avi Lewis. Not only is the party deeply in debt, he also faces the challenge of trying to turn around the party's electoral fortunes. David Thurton, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Let's bring in Chief Political Correspondent Rosemary Barton. And Rosie, David mentioned challenges. Let's talk more about what they are and how Avi Lewis plans to tackle them.
He's already, Ian, been tackling some of them, raising money. He's been bringing in more members. He's getting people talking about the NDP again. But the real work starts now. He doesn't seem to be in a rush to get a seat inside the House of Commons. When I spoke to him earlier today, he pointed to the fact that Jack Layton took a year to seek a spot, though Lewis wouldn't put a timeline on things. He did acknowledge that this is going to be an important part of what he's doing. His biggest challenge is really managing the party, whether it be the caucus, which is small, but still not all on side with his ideas, with supporters, some of whom he has alienated in the past with some of his current policies. And then, as David mentioned, his provincial cousins, who have seen a lot of success across the country, could be really useful to a new federal leader if Lewis can find a way to manage those relationships. This is a decisive win today. He certainly has room to maneuver based on the mandate he received.
So how does his leadership change the political landscape?
There's definitely room for a party that is more left of center right now, in part because of where the Prime Minister is taking the Liberal Party. Some of that has even brought some discomfort to his own caucus on environmental issues, for instance. But first, Lewis has to get Canadians to pay attention at a time when there is such deep concern about the world, such a strong desire for stability. And then secondly, he has to position the NDP in so it has broad appeal to Canadians and doesn't end up being sort of a fringe party. Lewis will need to reconnect the party with more traditional parts of its base. Union workers should be a big part of that. And that will be harder as long as Donald Trump, with his tariffs and his threats, looms as an electoral issue.
Rosemary Barton, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
To the war in the Middle East now, and new reports tonight suggesting the Pentagon could send ground troops into Iran in what would mark a major escalation in the conflict. Katie Nicholson now with what that might look like and how Iran is vowing to respond.
Over Jerusalem, the unrelenting battle plays out again in the sky, even as concerns shift to a potential operation on the ground. The Washington Post now reporting the Pentagon is preparing for weeks of ground operations in Iran. The White House insists the president hasn't made any decisions yet. Just the same, Democrats like Senator Andy Kim lined up Sunday to dissuade him.
I want to take a moment to make a direct call to President Trump and congressional Republicans saying we cannot have American troops on the ground in Iran. This is going to be such a risky operation. And for what purpose?
There are now more than 50,000 U.S. troops in the Middle East, roughly 10,000 more than there usually are. Not enough for a full-on invasion, analysts say, but enough for brief, targeted missions around the Strait of Hormuz.
Seizing islands, seizing small bases, typically raids, and a raid is an operation with a planned withdrawal. You're not going to stay.
The Islamic Revolutionary Guard spokesperson says if the U.S. puts troops on the ground, it will result in humiliating captivity and dismemberment, saying American commanders and soldiers will become good food for the sharks of the Persian Gulf. All of this as Pakistan has taken the lead in peace negotiations, attended only by representatives from Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. But Pakistan's foreign minister hinted more serious talks between the U.S. and Iran could follow.
Pakistan will be honored to host and facilitate meaningful talks between the two sides in coming days for a comprehensive and lasting settlement of the ongoing conflict.
The war, however, continues to escalate. Thousands have died across the Middle East, and Yemen's Iranian-backed Houthis now in the game, having launched missiles and drones at Israeli targets. While far away, the deeply personal impacts of this war felt in Ohio as the bodies of 3 airmen were returned home. The war has claimed the lives of 13 American officers, as thousands more stand by and await their orders.
What those orders might be, the president hasn't said, but he has told the Financial Times this evening he could seize Khark Island, Iran's primary oil export hub.
And Katie, there's also new reporting tonight about another asset in Iran that Trump has his eye on.
Yes, this is from the Wall Street Journal that Trump is also weighing whether to have the military extract nearly 1,000 pounds of uranium from Iran, something that would be incredibly risky and require complex logistics. After all, you're talking about potentially removing radioactive material from a war zone, and that would need to be handled by highly specialized teams.
Katie Nicholson in Washington. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered an expansion of Israeli military operations in southern Lebanon. In a video statement, Netanyahu said he wants to fundamentally change the security situation and strengthen Israel's position along the northern border. The fighting there is taking a massive toll on civilians, with recent strikes killing multiple journalists, paramedics, and peacekeepers. Paris police foiled an attempted bombing this weekend, seemingly in the nick of time. Early Saturday morning, right outside the offices of Bank of America, officers noticed 2 men with a shopping bag. Police reportedly moved in as one of the suspects tried to ignite a homemade explosive device. Since the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran 1 month ago, French officials have tightened security and called for greater vigilance. In Derby, England, investigators still searching for clues after a driver struck and injured 7 people last night at a popular spot in the city centre. The 36-year-old remains in custody on suspicion of attempted murder. Police say the incident is not currently being treated as terrorism, but counter-terrorism officers are assisting in the investigation. NASA's Artemis II mission could blast off as early as Wednesday. 4 astronauts, including a Canadian, are now in quarantine at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida ahead of their planned mission around the moon. Caroline Bargood with what they're saying about this mission to come.
If everything goes as planned, these astronauts will soon head farther into space than anyone has ever been before.
I will tell you, the 4 of us, we are ready to go. The team is ready to go, and the vehicle is ready to go. But not for 1 second do we have an expectation that we are going.
That's because the 10-day Artemis II mission is a test flight. The Orion spacecraft has never before flown with humans on board. February's planned launch was postponed because of hydrogen fuel leaks and helium flow problems. The next opportunity is April 1st, if the weather cooperates.
The thing we're watching is cumulus clouds, the thick cloud rule, and also winds. So right now we're forecast to be 80% go.
The astronauts, including Canadian Jeremy Hansen, will put Orion through its paces, making sure it performs well so future astronauts can land on the moon.
Even though this mission is not going to the surface, we are starting some of the processes that we think are going to help them be successful physically, emotionally, and mentally in getting ready for service work.
During Artemis I, Orion's heat shield was damaged, re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. Modifications have been made, but space travel always comes with some risk.
This is a test, and you never know for sure what the risks are until you actually conduct the mission. There may be risks we don't know about, but that's why we have brave astronauts who have spent their career dealing with risk.
Artemis II is a mission of firsts, the first woman, person of color, and Canadian astronaut to launch into deep space.
But I hope others outside of Canada feel part of this too, because this is just an acknowledgement of anybody who shows up and is able to contribute something meaningful to our future endeavors can be part of this mission.
NASA eventually wants to send astronauts to Mars, but first it needs this mission to blast off. The launch window runs from April 1st to the 6th. Caroline Bargood, CBC News, Vancouver.
And our special coverage of that mission begins on Tuesday. I'll be hosting from down at the Kennedy Space Center, and we'll have in-depth coverage of the launch itself. A Winnipeg man is taking WestJet to court after the airline canceled his flight and denied compensation, citing safety reasons. He did a little digging and found out there was much more to the story. Erica Johnson has our Go Public investigation.
These are my original bookings.
Rocky Neufeld was supposed to fly WestJet from Edmonton to Fort McMurray last year for work. He boarded the plane, but then a gate agent announced everyone had to get off, said WestJet needed the aircraft for another route. But about an hour later, an email from WestJet gave a different reason for the canceled flight.
They said it was mechanical issues. Just that was it.
Skeptical, Neufeld filed a claim, but WestJet denied compensation because under federal rules, airlines don't have to pay if a flight disruption is required for safety purposes. So he filed in small claims, then turned to the founder of an air passenger rights group for help. They looked at publicly available flight info and learned just 8 minutes before canceling Neufeld's flight, WestJet swapped his plane, used that original aircraft for a different route, leaving him with a plane that needed repairs. Neufeld says in settlement negotiations, a WestJet lawyer fessed up to the swap.
They did something very smart. They apologized.
Even though Neufeld agreed to keep discussions confidential, he says he's speaking out on principle.
When bad things happen, just own up to it.
This advocate says he objects to Neufeld breaking his confidentiality agreement, but says, big picture, airlines claiming safety issues, avoiding paying out, is a widespread problem.
I've seen a number of cases where there are very good reasons to doubt the airline story.
WestJet declined to answer any questions about this case or another similar case where the company swapped planes before canceling. An air passenger advocate says Canadians need to ask questions when their flights are canceled, saying airlines that break the rules rarely face fines. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Our Go Public stories come from you. If you have a tip for the team to investigate, send an email to gopublic@cbc.ca. The U.S. is allowing a Russian-flagged tanker carrying more than 500,000 barrels of crude oil to reach the shores of Cuba. This comes amidst what is effectively a U.S. blockade of the island, an attempt to put pressure on the Cuban government. The country hasn't received oil imports for roughly 3 months. Fuel shortages and power grid failures have plunged the island into darkness. It's not clear why this oil shipment has been let through. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is working to gain support from countries in the Middle East, including those currently under fire from Iran. Zelenskyy met with the King of Jordan today and said the two discussed a possible security partnership. This comes after stops in Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. Zelenskyy is offering his country's air defense expertise, especially against Iranian drone technology, which Russia began using against Ukraine in 2022. It's been 4 years since Russia captured the Ukrainian city of Mariupol. Now a new play written by a Canadian explores the choices Ukrainians faced at that time, whether to flee or stay under occupation. Briar Stewart takes us to the stage.
A moment of remembrance outside of a theater in Kiev. It's been 4 years since Russia bombed the drama theater in the city of Mariupol, where people were sheltering at the time. On the anniversary of that tragedy, a new play is taking the stage. The Ghosts of Mariupol is written and directed by Canadian Christopher Morris. It centers on an actor who fled Mariupol after Russia's invasion and one who stayed and works for the theater company under Russian control.
We go deep inside with these two characters' minds. We sit with them and feel with them as they grapple with a choice that they both made.
Sofia Vasileva can relate to the dilemma. She's from Zaporizhia, but her grandparents are living under Russian occupation in the city of Bryansk.
I really appreciate that I can speak from the stage my pain, pain for all people who are suffering from the war.
Russia, which continues to attack Ukrainian cities every day, has now rebuilt the theater in Mariupol to host Russian productions. It's infuriating to these actors in this play.
They're just dancing on the bones. I don't know, it's so... How can people be so... I'm just speechless.
Like open new Mariupol theater? Seriously? How it's possible in our world?
The Ghosts of Mariupol will tour across Ukraine, and there are plans to stage an English version in Toronto next year. Canada's ambassador hopes it resonates with audiences there too.
The more we see these expressions of what's happening, the more it remains in everyone's thoughts.
Because she believes art can play a role in keeping Ukraine's struggle in the spotlight. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
It's the biggest night of the year for Canadian music.
Lately you set up in my mind. Yeah, girl, you and I like that.
The winners, the tributes, and the performances that stole the stage at the 2026 Junos. Is knitting making a comeback?
Found what I needed here, cotton and linen blend yarn in green and a gorgeous light blue.
Why the hobby's heating up. And
it's got to come from just you.
a memorable moment for young Jays fan.
He just kept saying how lucky of a kid he is.
We're back in 2. That is Rush performing tonight at the 2026 Juno Awards in Hamilton, a celebration of Canadian music and the artists who make it. And Magda Gebrselassie is in Hamilton tonight. Some dazzling performances, Magda, and tributes.
Absolutely. The show really started off with a big bang. Rush had a special performance with the new drummer, Annika Niles. Then you had the host of the show, Mae Martin, full of Canadian pride, just having the best time. Soul singer Daniel Caesar walking away from these Junos with some wins and a special award. And then the beaches really hitting a milestone. The all-female band winning Group of the Year for the third time in a row, a first. And then you had Cameron Whitcomb having quite a splash of a debut. He's walking away with a couple of Junos, including for Breakthrough Artist. Take a listen.
But what I do know is I will not squander this opportunity. I love you guys and thank you so much.
Fan choice went to BB No Money, and when it comes to who had the most Juno wins, that was Tate McRae, but she was a no-show this year, but she took home 4 awards.
So lots of awards, performances, and tributes as well.
I'll let you know when.
Absolutely. Joni Mitchell receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award. Several people were part of her tribute, including Prime Minister Mark Carney. You also had Sarah McLachlan, Alison Russell as well. Mitchell talked about the aneurysm she suffered some years ago and how it changed her life for the better, and she thanked the crowd.
I want to thank the Junos for this great honor. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad to be back in Canada.
You also had Nelly Furtado, who was honored. She's being inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, and artists like Alicia Cara and Julie Black were part of her tribute. Furtado talked about the Canadian dream. Take a listen.
You know, growing up and feeling like I saw people I could relate with on TV, listening to it, because Canada's always cared about art. Canada's always cared about culture. I'm a product of that.
From legends in the industry to newbies with a breakout year, there's been a lot to celebrate this year.
Magda Geberselassie in Hamilton, thank you.
You're welcome.
After making history with Marvel, Canadian Simu Liu has taken his talents to Broadway, but also using his platform to try to bring about change.
There's a movement of like people who are just willing to flat out deny reality.
From politics to Hollywood, why the megastar is speaking out. And
fireworks! That is not fireworks.
Are thousands of satellites now orbiting Earth, putting humans at risk in the years to come?
I think it is really only a matter of time until someone does get killed by a piece of falling space debris.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. Police in Europe are investigating a massive chocolate heist. 12 tons of KitKat bars were stolen. That's more than 400,000 bars. They were loaded onto a truck in Italy, bound for Poland last week. Neither the truck nor its cargo ever arrived. The brand warns the theft may lead to a shortage of KitKats in Europe ahead of Easter. More and more young people are finding new satisfaction in old pastimes like knitting and crocheting. Gen Z sees them as a way to disconnect from too much screen time. Michelle Song shows us the appeal.
I really took my time with this one.
It's a lot of work to crochet a sweater, but for Dana Campen, it's a pastime she's willing to focus on.
I think I was just looking for a hobby that would get me off my phone, kind of forget about screens.
Found what I needed here, cotton and linen blend yarn in green and a gorgeous light blue.
Since picking up crocheting 5 years ago, she now shares her designs online, garnering a huge following. She's part of a growing number of Gen Zers, those born in the late 90s and early 2010s, picking up hobbies like crocheting or knitting.
I think it's really rare to find like a hobby like crocheting or knitting that tells you to slow down and focus and enjoy the process. And people are just starting to see the value in that.
And that's being reflected at this knitting festival in Toronto, which is nearly sold out, filled with people from all generations.
It's alpaca.
This yarn store says since the pandemic, they've seen a shift, with more people in their teens and 20s showing interest in the craft.
They're just seeing it a lot in their feeds. And so they're seeing more and more of their peers producing beautiful things, and then they get excited about it. The first step is inserting it into the loops.
It can be daunting to learn, but the results are rewarding.
Oh, yay! Okay.
Actually seeing something physically happen in your hands and watching it grow and knowing that you're responsible for that. It's hard to put into words why that's important, but it really does give a person like a really strong sense of satisfaction.
Pull over the buttons if they were to be on the side of the top.
I feel like that'd be nice.
And Campen is hoping to help share in that satisfaction with others, especially her friends.
I've had like so many questions throughout the process, so it was nice I could just text her really quickly about something small and she would explain it to me best she can.
And with social media, this community is continuing to grow. Michelle Song, CBC News, Toronto.
Canadian actor Simu Liu is also embracing a new experience, taking his talent to Broadway. I sat down with him recently in New York ahead of his debut play to talk about his career, Asian representation in Hollywood, and much more. Whether he's condemning ICE agents in Minneapolis or criticizing Hollywood for its lack of Asian representation, Simu Liu is not afraid to take a stand and speak his mind.
I got a couple of people to say hi to.
Over the past few years, he's become one of Hollywood's most compelling and outspoken stars, thanks in large part to the enormous platform he was given after becoming the star of Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1, action.
Simu Liu exploded onto the big screen as the first Asian lead in a Marvel blockbuster.
It's a huge thing. Right? With there are gonna be kids looking up you being like, oh, he looks like me. I can be a hero.
Shang-Chi was a major global box office hit, and with its success, a new kind of superhero was born.
We didn't really have that growing up.
We had nobody. We had nobody growing up, and now we have you.
His latest leading role is in a series, the spy thriller, The Copenhagen Test.
How long have you willingly been committing treason against the United States government? What? You're the mole, Alexander.
And now, Simu Liu is stepping onto an entirely new stage, this time in Manhattan, making his Broadway debut in the play, Oh, Mary. So what better place to sit down with the Canadian star than Sardi's? Famed for its walls lined with iconic Broadway stars from past to present, a reminder of the glamour and history of New York's theater district. Simu, it's a real privilege to sit down and chat with you, especially at Sardi's. This is such a great setting.
Thank you, yes. This is hallowed ground for Broadway.
Absolutely. And so you were performing last night in Oh, Mary. You're a few hours away from tonight's performance. How do you feel about the relentless pace and the live audiences of Broadway?
I feel great. I mean, I think rehearsal was a different story. I think there was a lot of hours and a lot of nerves, but once the opening night was kind of gone and out of the way, it just started to become quite unconscious in a way. And so and now it's just we're going out on stage every night and having fun.
Yeah. So I'm feeling like there are going to be people in Canada watching this interview, hearing all of that,
right,
thinking to themselves, on the one hand, I would love to go down and see this and maybe meet Simu after the show. But on the other hand, there are a lot of Canadians who don't want to come to the States right now on vacation, right?
Oh, yeah. Is that
Trump's 51st state threats and tariff wars. So it's kind of a conflict. What would you say to people who are thinking, want to see him, but kind of don't want to go down there?
Well, I certainly wouldn't want them to compromise their personal values, but if you happen to find yourself in New York, come say hi.
Yeah. You have been absolutely willing, fearless, I guess, to make your views known when it comes to some political issues.
Sure, maybe
right?
stupidly so, yeah.
Well, I mean, when Renee Good was shot and killed by ICE agents, you went on social media and made it very clear that you were very angry with that, and using the full word, you wrote F ICE, and that post is still up there, so you clearly stand by it. Is it tough to take a stand like that?
I don't think it's tough. I think it's tough to not say anything. I think it's tough to be complacent and to turn away. I think when Renee Good was killed, and first of all, she was not the only person that was killed as a result of ICE interference, but it certainly was a very, very loud one, and one in this day and age it's covered on video in so many different angles. It's just really fascinated me how the world and how the media world and how the real world responded to it, and how there is an entire kind of movement within, I don't even want to say it's just in the States, but just really like everywhere. There's a movement of like people who are just willing to flat out deny reality, right? Then the reality is that this was a woman who was unarmed, who was trying to drive her car away from a person that was clearly harassing her and banging on her windshield, and then was killed as a result of it. And so my parents immigrated to North America, because they were in search of a great life, a safe life, a life where they could, pursue equal opportunity. And it just, I think, knowing that this is the state of the country right now, it's deeply upsetting, and yeah, flies in the face of, I think, the America of old that my parents kind of fell in love with.
Let's change topics for a moment to something less contentious.
Oh, sure, yeah. No, you really came out of the gate.
The Copenhagen test.
Mm-hmm.
If they were looking into me, how worried should I be?
Alexander, I've known you your whole life, and I know the struggle that your parents imparted to you to prove you can be trusted here. Now you have to choose between your allegiance and your life.
I was watching that and I was thinking 6 months ago, if I were to say to somebody, picture the lead, the hero in an espionage action thriller.
Sure.
And you know what they would picture, right? It would be Tom Cruise. It would be Matt
It wouldn't
Damon.
be you or I,
No,
that's for sure.
it would,
Yeah.
Now, people might start picturing somebody like you when they think of that. That must make you feel good.
Yeah, it was a big part of, why we wanted to do the show. And not only was it a situation where you had someone who looked like me in the lead, but it was, very, I think, firmly baked into the DNA of that show as well. That character's background, how his background and his immigrant family and his roots kind of caused him to be second-guessed, maybe suspected at every turn of his career, and in a way that even impeded his career advancement. And I kind of felt a real kind of resonance and kinship with that idea of conditional acceptance for a lot of immigrants, and the kind of dark side, the unspoken side of the immigrant dream, which is that, you can come here and, you can pursue these opportunities, but we're never going to really see you as equal. We're never really going to see you as one of us. And I think that those are all dimensions that I was just really interested in exploring with that.
This can be a tough business where all of a sudden, I think, calls don't get answered. It seems to me that right now, from the outside looking in, your calls are getting answered, from Broadway to the Copenhagen test to, the next Marvel movie.
Sure.
And yet I've read that Asian representation in Hollywood has actually, which never, I don't think, was proportional, it was below proportional,
Sure.
has
Yeah.
actually started sliding backwards. Why is that happening?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should look at my career as an indicator of how, Asian representation is going just in the masses. I've been extremely blessed and I'm extremely fortunate to have this kind of job security of this, Marvel machine behind me, like, just to put it bluntly. I mean, the fact that we have these movies that come out that I play a character that has been, resonant for many, many years. It's not normal. And, if I were in any other movie that broke out in 2021 and did the numbers that it did, but didn't have this kind of continuing fan base and machine behind it, I would be out of work. I would be struggling. I would be, I think, auditioning for anything that, could come. And yeah, I am very fortunate. I'm working. I'm very happy to be working. But even I feel the kind of limitations of the industry and of the system that, quite honestly, just wasn't really built for my success.
So how do we fix that?
I think we have a lot of decision makers in the industry right now that are quite honestly just out of touch with what people actually want to see. There's a lot of movies out there that no one asked for and starring people that, you know, the studios consider to be bankable stars or less risky, when there are incredibly talented and not risky people waiting at the wings that are unfortunately being passed over because, you know, you have, again, these decision makers with a very traditionalist and very conservative mindset, which in art, you kind of never really want. You always want to be pushing the envelope a little bit. You always want to be taking some degree of risk and doing something unexpected, you know?
When I look at you, I see a guy who is a movie star, who is now a Broadway actor, Broadway star, who I know from, you know, a sitcom in Canada. You're doing a drama series. I see a guy who's made it. When you look at yourself right now, what do you see?
I think I see a guy that's very much still fighting. I've always wanted to, everything that I've said and done, I've always kind of in the back of my head had this image of like a 10-year-old me. And I always wanted to point at that person and say, hey, you should be proud of who you are. You should be proud of being, whether it's, you know, an immigrant, Asian, Chinese, whatever, you know, and you know, obviously Canada in particular is a country that's made up of so many different versions of that kid, right? Not just from China, not just from Asia, but all of them, I think, feeling like maybe outsiders in their own way, and feeling like it's difficult, especially in this day and age, to just feel proud of who they are and feel like they belong. That's been, you know, that's been my predominant motivation in all of the work that I do and everything that I say.
I went down there to interview an actor who had at the time, new Broadway play, but as you heard, it turned into a conversation about a lot more than that. Obviously, a really thoughtful, interesting guy. Coming up, the growing danger of space debris, like old satellites falling back to Earth.
I think it is really only a matter of time until someone does get killed by a piece of falling space debris.
Assessing the current risk and why some fear it might get worse. Next.
Starlink deploy confirmed.
As more and more satellites are launched into Earth's orbit, it's raising concerns about the threat of falling space junk here on Earth with potentially deadly consequences.
All of those things are going to continue falling out of the sky on a regular basis.
Darius Madavi shows the threat space junk poses, how scientists are looking to track them and find a possible fix to the problem.
What the hell? Oh, it's a meteor shower. Yeah.
In 2024, a fireball streaked across the sky in Southern California. From the ground, it looked like a dramatic fireworks display, or maybe a meteor, but it was no shooting star. Those are the white-hot remains of a Chinese spacecraft, an unplanned, uncontrolled re-entry.
We've had examples of pieces of debris falling on people's property, falling on people's houses, and thankfully no one has happened to be in that area. But I think it is really only a matter of time until someone does get killed by a piece of falling space debris.
I'm not a space junkie or anything like that. This is just what we found.
In 2024, a Saskatchewan farmer made headlines after a giant piece of a Starlink satellite crashed down in their field following a malfunction.
Around 70% of the 20,000 satellites ever launched remain in space today.
And scientists expect to see more satellite debris crashing down. Within a decade, we could have 10 to 20 satellites falling back to Earth every day.
Spectacular! Whoa! There's currently a 2 to 3% chance of a casualty each year from just re-entering space debris. and that is growing with our use of space.
The satellites flying on today's mission will be the first of our second generation of satellites.
That giant hunk of debris from Saskatchewan started its journey here, in the payload of a SpaceX rocket that can launch dozens of satellites at once.
And liftoff.
Building out Elon Musk's Starlink system, nearly 10,000 low Earth orbit satellites and growing.
Our first 3 Amazon LEO satellites.
And now rival companies like Amazon, states like Russia and China, even the EU, are racing to establish satellite constellations of their own.
We're approaching having 1 launch per day, and we've launched more satellites in the past 6 years than we have in the previous 60 years.
You can see all those satellites hurtling around Earth on websites like this. Each and every one of these orange and red dots is a low Earth orbit satellite like Starlink. And this globe gives you an idea of just how many are up there. Here, let's zoom in on Vancouver, where I am, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, all passing overhead right at this moment.
All of those things are going to continue falling out of the sky on a regular basis with no real understanding of what impact they have either on the atmosphere or the solid Earth or the people living on it.
Starlink deploy confirmed. Just as I was saying that, the Starlink payloads on screen, you can see them separating themselves from the second stage, and off they go.
Starlink satellites falling from the sky is no accident. They're designed to come down after 5 years so they can be replaced with newer tech. SpaceX says they should burn up on re-entry, but there are no fail-safes when that doesn't happen.
This is preventable. This is not something that needs to be happening. We can make better rules.
Fireworks! No, it's not fireworks.
Remember that Chinese spacecraft? As debris burns up in the atmosphere, it produces sonic booms that shake the Earth below it. That shaking can be picked up by seismometers, the same ones we use to detect earthquakes.
From that, we can work out what direction the object is going and how fast it's going, how fast it's descending.
This is the path of that burning spacecraft that researchers were able to recreate by tracking its sonic boom.
The really interesting thing is we were able to map the breakup of the object, so to show how the main piece of debris was disintegrating into smaller pieces.
This isn't going to be an early warning system. Don't expect an emergency space debris alert to pop up on your phone anytime soon. But it could help scientists better understand what happens when space junk falls back to Earth and recover toxic or radioactive material before it hurts people or the environment.
We don't have a huge amount of insight into what these satellites are made of or exactly how they break up, other than the word of the companies who've done internal modeling, which we don't have access to.
Next year, the European Space Agency plans to launch the Draco mission, a spacecraft designed to be almost entirely destroyed re-entering the atmosphere. That kind of real-world data could help companies design better satellites that do fully burn up in the atmosphere and allow regulators to craft better rules about what's allowed to go up and come down.
It's not just low Earth orbit that researchers are worried about, but the risks space debris might pose to future moon missions, given NASA's new plan to establish a lunar base by 2032. Coming up, a memorable catch for a father-son duo.
He just kept saying how lucky of a kid he is, and we all feel really lucky.
The significance behind the ball, next in our moment. This is Charlie Kramer with his father, Richard. The pair snapping a picture just before watching the Toronto Blue Jays in their second game of the season. Despite being Jays fans, the family now lives in Chicago. They had plans to head home with a souvenir hat, but ended up leaving with something much more memorable. And now their day at the park makes our moment.
And it's got to come from just you.
We really did not expect was that it came right to us, and we just tied the game up and we got the home run ball.
I didn't have a glove, so I just immediately ducked so that they could have the room, and Richard caught it. He just kept saying how lucky of a kid he is, and we all feel really lucky.
As you can see, I have it here, and it says that little 50 thing here because the Blue Jays started in 1977. It was pretty special. I mean, like, it was like the home run ball at the tie of the game. I think we could sell this for something. It was really special.
But we're gonna keep it.
Alejandro Kirk, like the guy you would least expect because, like, he started out the season really rough, and he hit a home run, and, like, we did not expect that. It was actually my first Blue Jays game because I live in Chicago.
We've never been in a baseball atmosphere like that before. It was phenomenal.
You can't get better than this.
That's an adult in a kid's body. Man, like what a great communicator. And there's a nice postscript to this story. So they were right by the bullpen where the pitchers warm up. And a couple of pitchers threw baseballs to the kid before the game started. And so afterwards, the dad noticed that there was a kid there that didn't have a souvenir ball, so gave him one of the ones that they got at the beginning of the game. From all of us here at the National, thanks for being with us. I'm Ian Hannah-Mansing in Vancouver. You can also join me on CBC News Network weeknights at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. See you then.